Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pig Girl podcast. Today, I have with me Jackson. Welcome, Jackson.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Gabriel.
Amazing. Can you give us a quick introduction about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I am a law professor who prepares students to take the United States bar exams around the country. And I own an online course called Celebration Bar Review, which I started 30 plus years ago before there was an online. So that's how old I am.
Sounds amazing. So, what originally inspired to take Celebration Bar Review online? And how did you get the ball rolling in those early days?
Yeah, in the early days, for your listeners who aren't familiar, when someone has graduated from law school, they have to take a test called the bar exam in order to practice. So it's a high stakes exam. And after I graduated from law school at Georgetown, I went to work for a traditional bar review prep company. There were only a couple of them back in the day. And basically what we did is we rode a circuit. We went around the country and we gave live lectures in lecture halls to students. And they took their books and they did their reading and they practiced questions and they studied for 6 or 7 weeks. And that was how the bar exam was done for years and years. Well, after a few years of doing that and being one of the senior people at a company called SMH Bar Review, that was started by 3 Harvard law professors, they were getting older and they wanted to retire. And I had the opportunity to buy their assets. And so I took over the business and renamed it as the study group and was doing the same thing. I was just traveling around the country. And that gets old really fast. I started to think about maybe there's a better way to do this in a way that's more convenient for the student than forcing them to sit in a classroom for 8 or 10 hours a day, every day for 7 or 8 weeks. And so I started thinking about the idea of recording the lectures that I was doing, putting them on videotape, and then ultimately putting them on audio cassettes and duplicating the cassettes, sending those to people, and they could study at home, and then we'd print the books and send them to them. And that was the very early stages of home study, long before there was an internet or any other way to do it. So we had tape duplicating machines wall to wall, and all we did all day long was duplicate tapes and reproduce books and send them out to people. And then as the internet began in its early nascent days, we thought, well, what if we put our course somehow online? But there was nothing like Udemy or there was no site where you could put your material, Teacherific, none of that existed. And the cost to try and host it by some third party was extraordinary. And so I had a tech guy working with me from Central Florida, and he said, why don't we try putting in our own server? And I said, well, there's only one problem. Nobody has a wire that would work in a residential area. And we ended up actually putting in the first, was a T3, T1, whatever they were called back then, and set up a server in our office and started putting files on there. And it was very fun. It was very rudimentary. As the economies of scale came along, it became possible to put things on another platform. And about 8 or 9 years ago, we actually switched to a service called Samcart, which not only was our e-commerce platform, but it became the ultimate host of our course. And we started putting up videos and digital books and questions and all of those pieces. Today, we have a number of different courses, but they're about 300 hours in length, each of them, and they're all online. And so we really moved through all of that. But there's one other thing I want to say about this. Between the going online and where we are today, Apple came out with this thing called an iPod. It was probably before you were born. We decided, why not take our recordings and convert them to files and put them on an iPod? And it was a huge hit. I mean, it just changed the world. So we would ship out a little iPod instead of all those audio cassettes. People went crazy for it. And then they'd return the iPod to us when the exam was done. And then when the iPad was first released, we were able to do the same thing there. And it was absolutely amazing to put all of that material there. So we had a history of innovation and trying to find new ways to get the material out to students. So that's a very long answer to your question, but just to give you a sense of what we were trying to do.
It's very interesting because you've done some very innovative things. Like you set up your own server before digital
Yeah.
education was even a very popular thing. And the thing you do with the iPods and iPads is very interesting. So I want to ask you, was there like a turning point where you felt that things really started to click in the online space?
Well, I think we got a sense of it when we put out iPods. Okay. That it told us that people wanted that approach. The problem was, if you go back and you think about online training, it was so bad. Connections were bad. It was hard to get on. You get bumped off. The quality was bad. I mean, there was just a lot of problems. And I don't think it was until about 10 years ago when we started to see that it was getting more user friendly, right? You didn't have to be a tech person to use it. I had law students who were adults, second career students, who weren't very technically savvy, and they couldn't cope with the way it was back then. So as that got easier and easier, we started to see real growth. And then fast forward to a year ago when we started incorporating AI, and that was the next big, I mean, huge jump forward for us. But I think that's where it happened, is it just got easier for people to use these tools. And of course, with the pandemic here in the United States, Zoom changed everything and people started getting more comfortable being online. So I think there's been a big difference from 2020 until today.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to get to the point with AI because I see you have
Yeah,
um, an AI accelerator for the bar exam inside your program. So
yeah.
can you tell me a bit more about that? How do you use AI that's more different than just going to
Yeah,
ChatGPT and asking for
yeah,
advice?
totally different. So as an educator, one of my great frustrations is that I teach, right? I give information out to my students and they give me what I call the bovine stare. They just, it's passive, right? They're just listening and their brain is trying to filter what they need. And here's all this material. I mean, a traditional bar review course has 15 or 20 outline books in it. It's a huge amount of material and it's too much for people to absorb. They clearly can't memorize it. And so you have this passive learning that wasn't very effective. Now, I started working, I don't know, 15 or 20 years ago with repeat bar takers, people who were kind of the tough cases. And I was successful with them because we started using some different approaches to learning that were more active and less passive. Things like using mind maps or using an advanced reading system that's called photo reading. As a result, I became known as the bar whisperer. I was the guy that people went to when they couldn't pass the bar with anybody else. But that began to create its own set of problems because I had people that weren't very good students. And what they were struggling with was too much material, a sense of overwhelm, getting bogged down in things that didn't matter. So I had done some of my early educational work with Howard Gardner from Harvard here in the US. And he wrote he wrote a lot of books, but one of them was called Multiple Intelligences. And what Howard taught me was that in order to make learning really successful, the learner has to be engaged. They have to be actively involved. That children and people learn by asking questions, not by just sitting there absorbing material. So if I said to you, Gabriel, you've got to study contract law today and you have to listen to 6 hours of lecture, right? You're not going to be very excited about it. But if I take that same 6 hours of lecture and I run it through an AI enhanced set of tools like Google Notebook LM and Recall and Fun Blocks for mapping. I put all those pieces together. I can then create a database and I create a subject bot that weirdly enough looks and sounds like me. The student can then start going and asking questions and saying, well, I don't understand how contracts are formed, or what's this rule called the parole evidence rule, or whatever it might be. And I think that the reality in that circumstance is that we started seeing students become much more engaged. We flipped the script, right? They became active learners and they cut down their study time by half and their scores went up. Why is that? Well, they weren't just sitting there listening to 6 hours of lecture, of which they only needed maybe an hour's worth of the information. And the hour that they were getting was what they wanted to know or needed to know. And so the scores started moving up pretty dramatically. So today, what we do is we take what we call a legacy course, which would be a traditional course like you'd see anywhere online, right? It's got lectures, it's got books, it's got practice questions, and then you rinse and repeat. We take that and we add a series of AI enhanced tools. We create video explainers We create avatar videos of the work that the students actually submit to us, which is quite extraordinary. Rather than me sitting there doing a one-on-one, we create these videos. We're able to take all their source material and make it all available to them. And then we create this study bot where they can ask questions of the study bot for anything that they want to know. And they can create mind maps, and they get all of that information in a pretty easily digestible package. And it's been a huge, huge success. So I think this is where I think large language models for really dense, complicated material is one of the incredible things that are out there, right? I mean, I'm imagining that you've taken that approach and you've said, I want to know about this subject, and you go out and do it. But if you have to learn a subject as big as what the bar exam tests you on, it's overwhelming to people. They just don't know what to do. That's I know it doesn't sound like a nutshell. I'm very wordy, as you can tell, but that is the essence of what we're doing right now.
Yeah, it sounds amazing, and I really like when I see people integrating AI into education. Um, I feel like the biggest bottleneck in classic education was that it's very efficient to do like one-on-one coaching or teaching, but it's not cost efficient because obviously there's always
Right.
way more students than professors, right? So before AI, you could either fill a classroom with 30,
Right.
50, 100 students, how many, or just upload some videos on a platform, right? And it's the same information for everybody. What I've seen that people are starting to do in all areas of education is they use AI not only to provide like this one-to-one experience, but also to tailor the learning experience based on the students'
That's it.
learning style, because over time
Exactly.
like the AI can figure out what you respond better to.
That's
So that's
absolutely
really cool.
true. And we're able to personalize this. And so we create a notebook for a student for every subject that they're going to be tested on. They have access to that notebook. They can access it on their mobile device if they wish. And they're getting an audio podcast that's interactive. They're getting a 6 or 7 minute video overview. And then when they submit their work, we run that through the AI and create an avatar generated video talking about their essay or their multiple choice performance. So it gets to that point of individualization in a way that's scalable, right? I could take my entire body of material in every subject, download it into a knowledge base, and then create an avatar of myself, an agent that's available 24/7 and never gets snarky, never gets irritated, doesn't whatever, right? And the student can then ask all the questions that they need to have that's important to them. What's important to me may not be important to you. And that has been the problem with most education. It's one size fits all. Now we're beginning to see how we can make it individualized. And I think when we've done that, what we've seen are these huge jumps in scores. So in my mind, this is really the future of education. I think people setting up the traditional online course probably is dead or is going to be dead very soon. And instead, it's really much more individual and much more focused on what they need.
I 100% agree with that. So you know what, I'm curious, you prepare people to take the bar exam, right? And you take all these steps to give them the best experience possible, and I'm sure they have great results at the bar exam, but what about afterwards? How do you see, is there a difference between people who take this kind of approach to learning in their
Yeah.
careers compared to their peers?
Yeah, I actually was just on the phone yesterday with a student that had failed the bar exam a number of times, came to me, went through this course, passed the exam, and became an assistant district attorney in New Mexico. And he was telling me about the way that this changed his approach to resolving a problem, identifying the legal problems, and then writing about them, standing in front of a judge or a jury and arguing about them, that he now had this greater focus. And ironically, he was telling me that his daughter has just started this week law school in California, and he wants her to have access to these same level tools all the way through law school, not waiting until she graduates. I think it's perceptive that you've asked that question, Gabriel, because what happens is that once someone has seen that magic of AI, they've seen the magic of learning what they need to know. You can't stuff that genie back in the bottle. It just won't work. Now they're thirsty for it. I have another student who's had taken the bar for, I think, maybe 15 years without success in New York. came to me. He passed using these tools, and he is now licensed in New York. He works with a financial investment firm, and he's using these tools to get a certification in his field, right? Beyond the law, the financial field. And he uses it to stay up to date on what's happening with FINRA, whatever that is, some education or some financial piece. And so I see students using these tools in really exciting ways, creating ways that are individualized for their needs. And I think that's where we're headed, right? I think, if we're talking about somebody who's just graduating college or just in college today, they will not study the way that I did, certainly, and probably not the way you did either. And so we have to be on our toes, not on our heels, right? I had a conversation with a physics professor from a local university this week, and he was telling me how angry his department is about AI. And he said, well, maybe we're looking at it the wrong way. Instead of saying that it's allowing students to cheat, maybe what we should be doing is using AI to help them go deeper on the things they want to know. And so he and I were talking about how we use it in the bar review. I think the world is just opening up for us, right? I'm a true believer.
All right. So you mentioned that some professors see the AI as the villain in the learning process, right? But what
Yeah.
about the students? Do you think there are students or people who try to take the bar exam that misunderstand how these tools should be used or what they can do?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I've learned to do is that after someone signs up for this, I let them work for about a week or 10 days. And then I insist that we do a Zoom call to start walking through how these tools work for them. Because what I've discovered is no two people are going to use the tools the same way. And so I want to dig in a little bit by asking them some questions about their needs and their weaknesses and their strengths and what works, and help them see how to go forward. So for example, I was working with a woman who's a very visual learner. And for her, the best way to learn was to make a mind map of the material. Well, mind mapping for years was done by hand. It was very slow. And then there were some early mind mapping programs that were very difficult, very cumbersome. Well, today we've got some that are just amazing. I mean, we've got the prompt, we type it in, we create these amazing mind maps that you can then just tap on a subject and it expands it and creates even a presentation. And so we started working with how to use mind maps as the primary learning tool for this student with some short, 5 to 10 minute videos that were focused on particular areas. So I think that it's not rinse and walk away. It's really get the basic template and then start figuring out how you can make it work for individual students. And for me, as a teacher, that's still a lot of fun. I mean, I think that there are companies out there that just say, okay, we're going to use AI, and now we're back to one size AI fits all. I think that's a mistake. I think the real power of it is figuring out what the learner needs and then helping them use the tool.
It's very interesting. And a way we implement that for some of our projects is the first thing we do when a new student joins the program is we have them walk through to an interview with the AI. So like you do the Zoom call, we ask the questions in the AI chat. And that's the starting point, creating like an avatar for the student that already knows small bits about it. So maybe it's something you might want to look into.
Yeah, well, we've actually done so. We have like 45 or 50 knowledge bases, right?
Mm.
And one of those knowledge bases is how do you use this thing, right? And so we load up and we do Q&A and we put that out there. And that's been pretty useful. We've even done this. We're actually working with a tax preparer, a company that like an H&R. It's not H&R Block, but it's a company like them. And we've created an agent that can take the tax return that somebody gets, and you can go on their portal and ask questions about your tax return of this avatar, right? And how to use it and what to do with it, along with an explainer video and some other information. So I think there are ways to take this, variety of settings and make it work for people, because if we can answer the questions that individuals have, it absolutely is worthwhile. Now, we see a lot of the same questions come up, but I think as our knowledge bases get better and as the companies like HeyGen or Jog AI or Synthesia get better at creating, or DID, create bigger knowledge base buckets, we can do more and more with it. So it's interesting to work with all those companies, by the way. They're similar but different, right? And you find strengths and weaknesses in what they do.
All right. And besides the AI thing, what's like the most exciting opportunity you see on the horizon for the legal exam space?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. When the Apple Vision Pro, the goggles, the VR, came out, I was one of the first people standing in line. I got my Apple Vision Pro, and I'd pull it out here and show you, but that would just be showing off. What I think the future looks like, the bar exam is actually changing here in the United States over the next couple of years. We're going from a traditional pen and paper test to something that's more practice oriented, negotiation, mediation, legal research, and so on. Well, imagine if instead of watching a two-dimensional lecture, you could engage in an interactive discussion in virtual space where it felt like you were actually talking to the potential client, and the client was loaded with all of the objections and problems that would exist on the test. And you put on your headset, and now you are in a courtroom or in an office or doing an investigation and finding this information. Created a new course called the Next Generation Bar Exam on Apple Vision Pro, and I am so excited about it. It is amazing. And let me just say, when the Vision Pro came out, you know, you were looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars to prepare apps that might work. Today, in just a year and a half, you don't need that. You can vibe code this stuff. And when Vision Pro 26 comes out here in the US this fall, it's going to make it even more effective. Vibe coding wasn't even in my vocabulary a year ago. That's how fast I think things are moving. But that is really exciting to me because I think that gets us into that sense of immediacy and how somebody works, and we can record it and review it and help them. And how different is that?
It's actually funny that you mentioned vibe coding. It really is crazy. I built like an MVP for an AI lawyer
Uh-huh.
in just 4 hours without touching code or anything, just using
Oh, that's right.
Lovable and using prompts. So it
Yeah.
really is crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, I created an app for years. Students had said to me, we want a way to analyze our multiple choice questions. And we have a database of 2,000 questions, but there was no good way to really look at how you were doing or what you were missing or focus. And I spent a weekend coding on Base 44, and we created an app, and it worked beautifully. And I know nothing, zero about coding. So it's extraordinary. And I think the advice I would offer to people is just go build stuff. Even if it's not great, even if it's not perfect, get out there and get ahead of the curve instead of chasing it, right? I think that too many people, at least in my space, want to be perfect. There's no need for perfect. What we've got right now is horrible. I mean, out in the traditional world of learning, anything you do is going to be better, and you'll get better, and you can iterate so much more easily and faster. So I think it's well worth it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like, we do live in the era of speed, and you don't have time to perfect things because somebody else will come and
Absolutely.
implement your idea and throw it out in the market. Maybe get some
Yeah.
users, maybe get some financing. So yeah,
Yeah,
just go out and
absolutely.
try stuff.
Go out and do it. I mean, build it. They will come, right? And as we start to share ideas, I get up every morning very early because I'm an old man, and I put on my Apple Vision Pro, and I have AI pull for me every morning the YouTube videos that deal with whatever's new in AI in the last 24 hours. And so I've got a series of clips to watch every morning that tell me what's going on literally around the world. So as a result, I'm able to, I mean, ChatGPT is one thing, and that's wonderful, but, I'm able to use Manus and Abacus and, all of these Perplexity, all of these different products because I'm watching what's going on and the sharing that's going on, that's out there. And I'm excited about that. We haven't had that in the legal field. We've never done that. And so these are exciting times for sure.
Absolutely, and yeah, lots of things got easier, and
Yeah,
that
they did.
gets me into my last question, which is a bit of a special one, because I want to see like what's your unique view on this. So, if you could wave a magic wand and make one thing easier for your business, either on the teaching side or on getting more people inside, what would it be?
I think it would be getting rid of Facebook and Google. From an advertising standpoint, they still remain impenetrable, right? I mean, if you've put together a Facebook ads campaign or you've tried to do a Google ads campaign, they are still operating as though it were 10 years ago, right? It's too many dials and switches and complicated craziness, and you can't figure out by the time you've done it, did it actually result in anything? So from a business marketing standpoint, it's very frustrating whoops, hold on. Did I just get dropped off there?
No, no, I
I'm
was
still here.
hearing you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, uh, what I was going to say is, and this would be the revenge of Google and Facebook, there's, I think it's very hard as a marketer to know where you're putting your money and is it really getting you where you want to be. And so my hope is that there will come a time when we will have a frictionless way to be able to market and get to our customers without these middlemen who are making things difficult, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah. I, I do speculate something's going to happen in the marketing and advertising space. I think the AI platforms will introduce the opportunity to advertise your business for people who search and try to fix their problems with GPT and Claude and all that stuff.
I think so. I think we're able to target better today, but if you go to Facebook or you go to Google, you don't get the advantage of that. I mean, you have to go really outside, find a different platform, and then try and get that platform to fit into the Facebook Google world. And to me, that's still a very restrictive way to operate.
I completely agree. Like Facebook, I've been doing Facebook ads for 7 years now, and it can totally be a big headache
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
They are one of the most successful companies in the world, and their advertising platform is sucks a
Yeah,
lot of
it
times.
does. It does. And, the fact that you have to use somebody to help you do it, I'm pretty tech savvy, but I don't want to waste my time anymore on Facebook or Google ad platforms because they're impenetrable, right? When you can create apps with vibe coding, but you can't create a Facebook ad, it's just there's something wrong about that world, right? So I think there's a real opportunity out there for somebody to change that paradigm.
Absolutely. And to be honest, I feel like at least Facebook has taken steps into this direction compared to maybe like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Nowadays, you can just launch a campaign if you have some good ads. You can just
yeah,
launch a campaign with no targeting, nothing at all, and it will do
right.
a more than decent job on targeting right people based on the creative you provided.
It will. And the irony when you go to Google ads is that if you went to Google Gemini and you said, help me create ads for Google ad campaign, you still have problems, right? I mean, they've created these amazing AI tools, but they're still, to me, it is an intentional decision to make their ad platform unusable for most people, or at least not a way that you can see what the result is. And I find that really fascinating. And being a lawyer, I'm pretty sure that some of those class action lawsuits probably will see the light of day because it really feels like there's a deliberate attempt to keep businesses from seeing the results of the money they're spending. Because clearly Google has the ability to help you figure it out. They just have chosen not to use it. So interesting to me.
Yeah, so I can see your point here, and I do speculate from my experience that lots of times, not recently, but some years ago, they used to even send you like fake traffic to make it
Yes,
look like
right,
you get traffic. There is an incentive for them to do that because they have so many people who want to advertise, but
right,
people to advertise to, it's limited, of course. So they need to find a way to show the ads, but not more than
right.
they can, so they can get as much money out you as is possible. But on the other hand,
Yeah.
I also feel like Google makes their platform so much more complicated
Mhm.
to allow the advertiser to have much more control compared to
Yes.
other platforms. That's one of
Absolutely.
their.
There's no doubt about it. But I think the trend generally, I mean, forget about just advertising, but the trend generally is to make things simpler. I think it was Einstein that said an intelligent fool makes everything complicated, right? The idea is to simplify, it's to reduce friction, it's to help the user, the end user, get from point A to point B. I mean, we're using a tool here, Riverside. I use a comparable tool called Descript Descript takes my podcast videos and it edits for me and gives it back to me. It's making it easier. Now, does it have enormous capability? Yes, it really does. Could I get in and do fine line jump cuts? Yes, but it's not the best use of my time. And so as these tools get better, I think the real key is, do we know how to use them in a way that will give us maximum return on our time investment, right? And make things work better, faster. And that's what we try to do from an education standpoint. But as a business owner, that's the thing I'm always looking for.
Amazing. Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm very happily surprised to find that you are not only a legal expert, but also a tech savvy guy. And I'm sure this has played a huge role in your success with Celebration Bar exam review. And I want to thank everybody watching. I will link in the description of this video Jackson's website, which is Celebration Bar Exam Review. If you know somebody, or if you are going to personally try to take the bar exam, I recommend checking out their services. It's really amazing. And Jackson, if somebody would like to connect with you, maybe to discuss AI or tech, or
Yeah.
somebody outside of law, what's the best way to contact you?
On our website, you can reach me. It's Jackson at celebrationbarreview.com. I read all my own email because my AI does everything else for me. And I would love to have those conversations. It's a great way to grow. And Gabriel, I appreciate the opportunity to come on your show and to talk to your audience. I think the more that those of us that are in this space talk to each other, the smarter we're all getting. And it's really exciting time.
Guys, I appreciate you for taking the time to record this and to share your own insights. And yeah, thank you again, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.